I can't keep doing this anymore.
I know it is hard.
Come say it to my face. Naomi Carter stared at the message glowing on her phone, certain that the man who had betrayed her had just made the worst mistake of his life. 10 minutes earlier, the 29-year-old black woman had been sitting alone in her small Chicago apartment, deleting photographs of Ethan Cole and wondering how 3 years of promises could collapse in a single afternoon. She had discovered his betrayal through a second restaurant receipt on the credit card account they shared. The charge came from a night when Ethan had claimed he was working late, and the reservation confirmation carried the name of a woman Naomi did not recognize. Naomi had typed her final message through angry tears, telling Ethan that she knew the truth, that their relationship was over, and that she never wanted to see him again. She had not noticed one incorrect digit in the number. Now the unexpected reply felt like a challenge. A second message appeared with an address near the Chicago River in one sentence. Midnight, unless you only speak bravely from a distance. Naomi should have blocked the number. Instead, years of swallowing disappointment pushed her to put on her winter coat and step into the freezing December night. She took a cab downtown, rehearsing everything she had never found the courage to say. The address led her to the Bellwether Crown, an exclusive residential tower where the marble lobby was larger than her entire apartment building. The doorman checked her name against a private guest list, then directed her to the penthouse elevator. That detail should have warned her, but anger carried her upward before caution could pull her back. At exactly midnight, the elevator opened into a quiet room overlooking the city. A tall white man in a charcoal suit stood near the windows, holding a phone in one hand. He appeared to be in his mid-30s, with dark hair, pale gray eyes, and the controlled stillness of someone accustomed to being obeyed. He was not Ethan. Naomi stopped several feet from him. "Who are you?" The stranger glanced at his screen. "I was about to ask you the same question." Naomi pulled out her phone and compared the numbers. Her anger vanished beneath a wave of embarrassment. "I sent that message to the wrong person." "I gathered that." His voice was calm, almost amused. "Most strangers do not end relationships with me before introducing themselves." Naomi lifted her chin. "Then delete it. Forget I came here, and we can both return to our lives." The man studied her with an interest that made the enormous room feel suddenly smaller. "You crossed 5 miles of frozen Chicago to confront someone who disappointed you. Walking away now seems unlike you. You know nothing about me." "I know you meant every word." Naomi turned toward the elevator, refusing to explain her heartbreak to a wealthy stranger who treated midnight confrontations like entertainment. Behind her, his voice lost its amusement. "Wait, what is the name of the man you intended to text?" She should not have answered, but something in his tone made her pause. "Ethan Cole." Silence settled over the penthouse. When Naomi looked back, the stranger was no longer smiling. He placed his phone on the table and asked, "How exactly do you know Ethan?" Naomi tightened her grip on her purse. "Why does that matter to you?" The elevator doors began closing between them. Just before they met, the man answered with 5 words that followed her all the way home. "Because he works for me." Naomi slept for less than 3 hours. Every time she closed her eyes, she heard the stranger say that Ethan worked for him. By sunrise, she had convinced herself it meant nothing. Chicago was filled with large companies, complicated reporting structures, and men who exaggerated their importance. The stranger could have been Ethan's supervisor, a client, or simply someone who enjoyed creating mystery. None of those possibilities changed the fact that Ethan had betrayed her. At 7:30 that morning, Naomi arrived at the Belmont Hotel, where she had worked for 6 years, beginning as a room attendant before earning her current position as guest services manager. The elegant building stood along Michigan Avenue, decorated with silver lights for the holiday season. Inside, however, the atmosphere felt unusually tense. Employees gathered in quiet groups, and several department managers hurried toward the main ballroom carrying folders. Marcus Reed, Naomi's closest friend at work, intercepted her near the front desk. "Where have you been? Vanessa called an emergency meeting. Somebody bought the hotel." Naomi removed her coat. "Who?" "Russo Holdings. The deal closed late last night." The name meant nothing to her, but the timing created an uneasy feeling she could not explain. Vanessa Hale, the hotel director, appeared at the ballroom doors and ordered everyone inside. Vanessa had spent years reminding Naomi that good service meant smiling through disrespect, especially when wealthy guests were involved. Naomi respected the position, but she had stopped trusting the woman holding it. More than one employee complained it disappeared after reaching Vanessa's office. Nearly 100 workers filled the ballroom. At 8 o'clock, Vanessa approached the microphone and introduced the new owner. When Adrian Russo stepped onto the stage, Naomi forgot how to breathe for a moment. He wore a navy suit instead of the charcoal one from the penthouse, but there was no mistaking his steady gray eyes. He surveyed the room until his gaze found her. Surprise briefly crossed his face before his expression became unreadable. Vanessa announced that Russo Holdings would review every department, every contract, and every senior employee. Nervous whispers moved through the room. Adrian did not offer cheerful promises. He said that competent people had nothing to fear, but hidden problems would not remain hidden. Naomi wondered whether those words were meant for the hotel or for her. After the meeting, Vanessa asked Naomi to remain behind. Adrian waited beside the stage while the last employees departed. "Mr. Russo would like a private tour of guest services," Vanessa said. "You will provide it?" Naomi kept her voice professional.
Of course.
Vanessa left, closing the ballroom doors behind her. For several seconds, neither Naomi nor Adrian spoke. Finally, he held up his phone. "I deleted the message, as requested." "Thank you. I also confirmed that Ethan Cole works for one of my consulting divisions." Naomi felt her embarrassment harden into suspicion. "You investigated him overnight?" "I investigated why an employee connected to a confidential project has been approaching someone who works inside a property I was acquiring. Ethan dated me for 3 years. He was not approaching me for your hotel." Adrian's expression remained calm. "Then you will have no reason to worry." Naomi stepped closer, refusing to be intimidated by his position. "If you believe I helped him do something dishonest, say it directly." "I do not believe that." "Then what do you believe?" Adrian looked toward the closed doors before answering. "I believe Ethan used your relationship to enter this hotel at least 4 times after business hours." Naomi remembered the evenings Ethan had brought her dinner, claiming he wanted to surprise her during late shifts. Her confidence faltered, but she refused to let Adrian see how deeply the realization unsettled her. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because last night you accidentally gave me the first honest warning I have received in months." Before Naomi could respond, Adrian opened a folder and placed a security photograph on the table. It showed Ethan entering the staff elevator beside Vanessa Hale. Naomi examined the security photograph until the faces began to blur. The timestamp showed 11:46 on a Thursday night 6 weeks earlier. She remembered that evening clearly because Ethan had arrived with coffee and waited in her office while she handled a complaint on the 20th floor. Vanessa had later appeared near the staff elevator and claimed she was checking a maintenance issue. Naomi had believed both of them. "This proves they were in the same hallway," she said, pushing the photograph back toward Adrian. "It does not prove they were working together." "There are 3 more photographs from different nights." Adrian placed them beside the first. Each image showed Ethan entering a restricted area within minutes of Vanessa. Naomi felt humiliated, but she refused to let that feeling decide what was true. Why would Vanessa risk her career for him? "That is what I intend to discover." "And you expect me to help because I dated him?" "I expect you to help because you know this hotel better than anyone in the room this morning." Adrian explained that financial records and private information connected to the Belmont acquisition had been accessed before the sale became public. Whoever entered the system had used valid employee credentials, making the breach appear legitimate. Naomi immediately understood the danger. Her identification badge gave her access to administrative corridors, and Ethan had been alone in her office several times. "Check my account," she said. "We already did." Adrian's answer came too quickly. Naomi straightened. "You investigated me before I walked into that ballroom?" "The review began before we met." "Then you knew who I was last night." "I knew your name only after you mentioned Ethan. I confirmed your position this morning." Naomi wanted to leave, but doing so would allow suspicion to grow around her. She had spent 6 years building a reputation based on honesty, and she would not surrender it because 2 people had taken advantage of her trust. "If I agree to help, there will be conditions." Adrian's eyebrows lifted slightly. "You are negotiating with the owner of this hotel." "I am protecting myself from a man who investigates people before breakfast." For the first time that morning, amusement softened his expression. "Continue." Naomi raised one finger. "You do not follow me, monitor my private messages, or enter my apartment." A second finger followed. "You do not interfere with my personal life or threaten my job if I refuse something unrelated to the investigation." Then she raised a third. "You do not lie to me, not once." Adrian's gaze rested on the final finger. "Some information about my business is confidential. Keeping a business secret is different from lying. If you cannot answer something, say so." He considered her terms before extending his hand. "Agreed." Naomi looked at his hand without accepting it. "Put it in writing." Adrian gave a quiet laugh, but he opened the folder, wrote the 3 conditions on a clean sheet of hotel stationery, signed his name, and passed her the pen. Naomi added her signature beneath his. Their arrangement would last 7 days, during which she would review staff access records and identify anything unusual about Ethan's visits. Adrian promised that her employment status would remain protected throughout the inquiry. Naomi folded the paper and placed it in her purse. "Where do we begin?" "With the night Ethan first entered your office." They walked toward the security department, maintaining several feet of professional distance. Near the ballroom doors, Adrian stopped. "There is one more thing you should know." Naomi waited. "Someone accessed the acquisition files using your employee identification at 2:17 this morning." Naomi stared at him. At that exact time, she'd been standing inside his penthouse. Naomi reached into her purse and pulled out her employee badge. It was exactly where she always kept it, attached to a blue retractable cord. Adrian examined it without touching it. "The system shows that badge entering the executive records room at 2:12 this morning," he said. 5 minutes later, someone downloaded the acquisition files. I was with you at 2:12, which is why you are not being suspended." Naomi understood the meaning beneath his words. Without Adrian as a witness, she would already have been treated as the primary suspect. In the security office, Marcus helped them review the electronic access log. The camera outside the records room had stopped recording for 19 minutes, but the badge scanner remained active. Marcus explained that employee badges could be duplicated if someone briefly placed them near a portable reader. Naomi remembered Ethan borrowing her purse during a charity dinner 2 months earlier, because she had nowhere safe to leave it. At the time, his offer had seemed thoughtful. Now every kind gesture from the relationship carried a second possible meaning. "We cannot prove he copied it," Naomi said. "Not yet," Adrian replied. "Then we keep looking." Her refusal to collapse under suspicion appeared to surprise him. They spent the morning checking shift reports, delivery records, and archived visitor logs. Naomi identified several inconsistencies that the corporate investigators had missed because they did not understand how the Belmont operated during overnight hours. A service elevator recorded as inactive had actually been used regularly by the catering staff. A visitor marked as a florist had entered 3 days after the hotel's last scheduled event. By noon, Naomi had created a timeline linking 2 of Ethan's visits to unusual activity in the administrative network. Adrian listened to every observation without interrupting or claiming credit. Their progress ended when Marcus entered with a separate folder. "You need to see this," he told Naomi. The documents revealed that Vanessa planned to eliminate health benefits for 32 hourly employees as part of the ownership transition. The proposal had been prepared before Russo Holdings completed the purchase, but it carried Adrian's electronic approval. Naomi read the names on the list. Housekeepers, kitchen workers, and maintenance employees would lose coverage within 30 days. Several had children or ongoing medical needs. "Did you approve this?" she asked. Adrian looked at the signature. "It was included in a restructuring package." "That is not an answer." "Yes, I approved the package." Naomi closed the folder. "Then the investigation can wait." She walked into the afternoon leadership meeting with Adrian, following several steps behind. Vanessa was presenting projected savings to a table of executives when Naomi placed the benefits list in front of her. "These are people, not savings." Vanessa's smile tightened. "This meeting is for senior leadership." "Then senior leadership should know whose lives are being reduced to a line on a spreadsheet." Vanessa looked toward Adrian, expecting him to remove Naomi or silence her. Instead, he asked Naomi to continue. She explained that many employees had remained with the Belmont for more than a decade, working weekends, holidays, and overnight shifts. Cutting their benefits would save less than 1% of the hotel's annual operating budget, while destroying trust across every department. When she finished, the room was silent. Adrian studied the figures, then turned to the finance director. "Restore the benefits and remove executive bonuses until the difference is covered." Vanessa protested that the decision would damage morale among management. Adrian replied, "If management needs bonuses to care whether employees can afford medical treatment, we have hired the wrong management." After the meeting, Naomi found him alone near the ballroom windows. "You changed your decision quickly. You gave me facts I was not given before. Most powerful men do not admit they were wrong." Adrian looked out at the snow beginning to fall over Michigan Avenue. Most people around powerful men are too afraid to tell them. Before Naomi could answer, his phone displayed a new security alert. Someone had attempted to access the same files again, but this time the signal came from inside Vanessa's locked office. Adrian instructed the security team to preserve the digital record without entering Vanessa's office. Naomi expected him to confront the hotel director immediately, but he refused to reveal what they knew until they understood who else was involved. The attempted access had lasted only 11 seconds and failed because Adrian had changed the authorization requirements that morning. Vanessa claimed she had been attending the leadership meeting at the time, which was true, but someone could have used her office without her knowledge. "Or she could have arranged it before the meeting," Naomi said. "Both possibilities remain open," Adrian replied. His patience frustrated her, yet she respected that he would not condemn Vanessa without proof. By late afternoon, Marcus found a calendar entry showing that Ethan was scheduled to attend the Lakefront Children's Foundation auction the following evening. The guest list also included Vanessa and several executives connected to the Belmont acquisition. Adrian believed someone intended to exchange information at the event, but entering alone would attract attention. "You want me to go with you?" Naomi said. "Only if you choose to." She noticed the care he placed in the final words, as if he remembered every condition in their agreement. "What would I be there as? My guest? That sounds dangerously close to a date. Then we will call it an investigation with dinner." The next evening, Naomi arrived at the Grand Meridian wearing an emerald green dress she had purchased years earlier for an award ceremony. Adrian waited in the lobby in a black tuxedo, but for several seconds he seemed to forget the greeting he had prepared. Naomi noticed his reaction and looked away before he could see her smile. He offered his arm without assuming she would take it. She did, reminding herself that they were performing for the room. Inside the ballroom, crystal lights reflected across tables decorated with white roses. Business leaders greeted Adrian with careful smiles, while others lowered their voices when he passed. Naomi had spent years observing wealthy guests, and she recognized fear disguised as respect. "Everyone watches you," she said. "They watch what my name represents." "Is there a difference?" Adrian considered the question. "There should be." They saw Ethan near the silent auction displays. He looked polished and confident until he noticed Naomi beside Adrian. His expression revealed more than any security photograph. Ethan approached and asked Naomi for a private conversation. She refused. "You disappeared without explaining anything," he said. "I discovered enough without your explanation." Ethan insisted that Vanessa was merely a professional contact and warned Naomi that Adrian used people until they were no longer useful. Adrian remained silent, allowing Naomi to answer for herself. "You do not get to question whom I trust after making me doubt my own memories," she said. Ethan left, but not before glancing toward a woman seated near the rear exit. Adrian identified her as an attorney representing a corporation that had unsuccessfully tried to purchase the Belmont. As dinner began, Naomi and Adrian watched Vanessa move between tables while maintaining their appearance as an ordinary couple. Their conversation gradually shifted away from the investigation. Naomi learned that Adrian had inherited responsibility for his family's companies at 27 after his father died. Adrian learned that Naomi had supported her younger brother through college while building her own career. "Why did you answer my message?" she asked. He looked across the crowded ballroom. "Because everyone who contacts me wants money, permission, or protection. You wanted nothing." "I was trying to leave someone." "Exactly. It was the most honest message I had received in years." Before Naomi could respond, the auction host called Adrian to the stage. Applause filled the room, and Naomi glanced toward Ethan's table. His chair was empty. So was Vanessa's. As Ethan hurried away, a blue badge slipped from the leather folder beneath his arm and landed beside his chair. Naomi crossed the room, picked it up with a napkin, and recognized her name and photograph. Naomi immediately opened her purse. Her employee badge was still inside, attached to the same blue cord she had shown Adrian the previous morning. The one on the table was a duplicate. She slipped it into a folded napkin without touching its surface, and signaled Adrian as he returned from the stage. His expression changed when he saw it, but he did not alert the room. "Stay here," he said quietly. Naomi withdrew her arm from his. "That sounded like an order." Adrian caught himself. "Please stay where I can find you while I ask security to monitor the exits." "You can ask, but I am coming with you." They followed a service corridor toward a private conference wing, where voices carried through a partially open door. Ethan was demanding additional time. Vanessa replied that the duplicate badge had become useless after Adrian changed the security system. Naomi sent Marcus a written account of what she heard. But before either person admitted why they wanted the files, an event coordinator entered the corridor and called Vanessa back to the ballroom. The conversation ended. Vanessa emerged first, showing no surprise when she saw Naomi. Ethan followed several seconds later and claimed they had been discussing a consulting contract. Naomi held up the copied badge. "Was this part of the contract?" Ethan's confident expression disappeared. Vanessa denied knowing anything about it and accused Naomi of planting evidence. Adrian stepped between the accusations with controlled authority. He informed them that both would be removed from the Belmont investigation until an independent digital review was completed. Vanessa laughed bitterly. "You still pretend this is an ordinary corporate inquiry?" She turned to Naomi. "Ask him what Russo Holdings really protects. Ask him why judges, politicians, and business owners answer his calls before they answer their own families." Adrian told Vanessa to leave. Her final words followed Naomi down the corridor. "You made rules with a man whose entire life depends on secrets." In a private lounge overlooking Lake Michigan, Naomi asked Adrian for the truth. He remained silent long enough to answer her without speaking. "Are you a criminal?" she asked. "My family built its influence through organizations that existed long before I took control. Some people call us a syndicate. Others use the word mafia." Naomi felt the room shift beneath her. "And what do you call yourself?" "A man trying to move that power into legitimate businesses without allowing the old structure to destroy everyone connected to it." Adrian explained that he had spent years closing illegal operations, replacing threats with contracts, and separating the families, companies from the network he inherited. The Belmont acquisition was supposed to be another legitimate investment, but leaked files could expose employees and partners who had trusted him during the transition. "You knew who I was before you bought the hotel," Naomi said. Adrian did not deny it. He admitted that his investigators had reviewed senior Belmont employees weeks earlier, including Naomi. They had found Ethan's unexplained visits but lacked proof of his purpose. "So when I arrived at your penthouse, you already recognized my name." "Not when the door opened. I recognized it after you mentioned Ethan. You let me believe our meeting was entirely accidental. The message was accidental. What happened afterward was not." Naomi took the signed agreement from her purse and placed it on the table between them. "You promised not to lie. I did not give you false information. You used careful words to hide the truth. That is still deception." Adrian's composure weakened. "I wanted one conversation where my family name did not decide what someone saw in me. Then you should have trusted me enough to let me decide." She walked toward the elevator. Adrian did not follow, command, or attempt to stop her. Just before the doors closed, he said, "What I felt with you was the only part I never planned." Naomi looked at him through the narrowing space. "That does not make the rest honest." When she reached the lobby, her phone displayed an urgent message from Marcus. Her employee account had just transferred every stolen file to an outside server. By the time Naomi returned to the Belmont, 3 corporate investigators were waiting inside her office. Her computer had been disconnected, her access privileges had been frozen, and a formal notice informed her that she was suspended pending review. Marcus stood near the door, angry but powerless. He explained that the transfer had originated from Naomi's account at 9:14 that evening, while she was attending the auction. The system also showed that her password had been entered correctly on the first attempt. "I was at the Grand Meridian, in front of hundreds of people," Naomi said. The lead investigator acknowledged her alibi, but pointed out that the transfer could have been scheduled in advance. Vanessa entered with a representative from the corporate board and placed another folder on the desk. It contained emails apparently sent between Naomi and Ethan over several months. The messages discussed the hotel sale, employee access codes, and payment after the acquisition failed. Naomi recognized her email address, but she had never written the messages. "These are fabricated," she said. Vanessa folded her arms. "Your badge entered the records room, your account transferred the files, and your email negotiated the payment. How many coincidences should we accept?" Naomi looked toward Adrian as he entered the office. For one painful second, she wondered whether he had known this would happen and used her to complete his investigation. His face revealed nothing. The board representative demanded that Naomi surrender her personal phone and sign a statement accepting responsibility for violating company policy. Adrian took the statement, read it, and tore it in half. "No employee will be forced to confess before the evidence is independently verified." Vanessa reminded him that Russo Holdings could lose millions of dollars if the leak became public. "Then we lose money," Adrian replied. "We do not sacrifice an innocent person to protect a balance sheet." His words should have reassured Naomi, but trust could not return simply because he defended her when others were watching. She handed her hotel keys to Marcus and left before anyone could stop her. Outside, snow covered the sidewalks and softened the noise of Michigan Avenue. Naomi turned off her phone and walked nearly a mile before taking a cab to her aunt's vacant townhouse on the south side. It was the one place Ethan had never visited, and Adrian's investigators would not immediately associate with her. She needed distance from both men and time to think without someone else deciding what she should believe. At the hotel, the corporate board pressured Adrian to release a statement identifying Naomi as a former employee acting alone. Doing so would protect the acquisition and preserve investor confidence. Adrian refused. He ordered an outside cybersecurity firm to examine every file, even after his attorneys warned that the review might expose private details about the Russo organization. When Marcus asked why Adrian would take such a risk, he answered, "Because she asked me for the truth, and I gave her another reason to doubt it." Meanwhile, Naomi opened the copies of the evidence Marcus had slipped into her coat pocket. She compared the fabricated emails with old messages Ethan had sent during their relationship. One phrase appeared repeatedly in both: "Timing creates opportunity." Ethan had used those words whenever he justified canceling plans for work. Naomi searched through photographs stored on her phone and found one taken inside her office 3 months earlier. Ethan was smiling beside her desk, but the dark reflection in the window revealed someone standing in the hallway behind him. Naomi enlarged the image until the figure became recognizable. It was Vanessa, holding a silver laptop marked with the logo of the corporation that had tried to buy the Belmont. Naomi turned her phone back on to call Marcus. Before she could reach him, a message from Ethan appeared. "If you want your name cleared, come alone and bring Adrian Russo's signed agreement." Naomi did not answer Ethan. She photographed his message, forwarded it to Marcus, and spent the night preserving her photographs, emails, and account history. The following afternoon, she asked Marcus to meet her at a 24-hour diner near Hyde Park. Marcus arrived first, carrying a laptop and copies of the hotel's access records. Together, they examined the photograph, the fabricated emails, and Ethan's demand. The signed agreement seemed meaningless until Marcus noticed that Adrian had written it on stationery, embossed with an internal document locator. The number could not open confidential records, but it could identify the secure archive containing the board authorizations Ethan still needed. Naomi realized the request was not about destroying proof of Adrian's promise. Ethan intended to use the locator to find a document that his stolen credentials could not reveal. Marcus suggested contacting Adrian, but Naomi hesitated. Asking for his help would place her back inside a world built on influence and secrets. Before she decided, Adrian entered the diner alone. He stopped several feet from their booth and made no attempt to sit. "Marcus told me where you were, after I promised I would not bring security or ask anyone to follow you." Naomi looked at Marcus, who nodded apologetically. Adrian placed a sealed envelope on the table. "The outside review found that your account was accessed through a dormant technology vendor profile from Vanessa's office. Someone had reactivated it with credentials issued years ago, and Vanessa had recently approved a payment to that vendor. This is only a preliminary report." Naomi opened the envelope but did not invite him closer. "Why bring this to me instead of announcing it?" "Because it clears you, and you should see it before the board turns it into a public relations statement." Adrian also revealed that the investigators had discovered payments from the competing corporation to a consulting company controlled by Ethan. The evidence was strong, but it did not yet prove that Vanessa had personally reactivated the account or authorized the file transfer. Naomi showed him Ethan's message and the photograph from her office. Adrian read both, then asked, "May I sit down?" The question surprised her more than any command could have. She nodded. For the next hour, they constructed a plan based on documentation rather than confrontation. Naomi would agree to meet Ethan in a designated corporate interview room at the Belmont. An independent attorney would supervise the process, and Ethan would receive a written visitor notice, stating that the room used security cameras and audio monitoring. The plan would rely on preserved digital records and verifiable details rather than a secret recording alone. Adrian offered Naomi access to files detailing the Russo organization's transition into legitimate businesses. His attorneys had warned him that releasing those records could cost him control of several companies and expose mistakes made under his leadership. "Why would you risk that?" Naomi asked. "Because the truth cannot mean only the parts that protect me." He slid a flash drive across the table but kept his hand beside it. "You decide whether to use it." Naomi saw the difference. He was not rescuing her or demanding her trust. He was placing his own future beside hers and allowing her to choose. The following afternoon, Ethan arrived at the Belmont conference room expecting Naomi to come alone. At reception, he signed the visitor notice without objecting to the stated monitoring policy. She placed the signed agreement on the table, but kept it inside a clear, protective folder. Ethan claimed he could erase the evidence against her if she provided the tracking number. Naomi deliberately gave him an incorrect final digit and said the locator pointed to the executive contracts archive. Ethan corrected her before realizing that only someone familiar with the stolen files could know the archive had been moved during the acquisition. Naomi then said the forensic team had found a dormant vendor profile linked to Vanessa's office. Ethan dismissed the finding as impossible because Vanessa had removed the profile after the transfer, revealing a fact the investigators had not made public. When Naomi asked how he knew, he blamed Vanessa, insisting that she had promised him payment, prepared the false emails, and told him when to copy Naomi's badge. Each defensive answer supplied another detail that could be checked against the financial and access records. Naomi calmly asked why she should trust him. Ethan answered, "Because Adrian Russo will protect his empire before he protects you." The conference room door opened. Adrian entered with the independent attorney and members of the corporate board. "Not this time," he said. Vanessa was summoned. The monitored interview and supporting digital evidence were secured, and both conspirators were removed from their positions pending independent investigation and legal proceedings. Adrian publicly accepted responsibility for the security failures and released the records needed to prove Naomi's innocence. When the board meeting ended, he found her in the empty lobby. "Your name is clear," he said. "You may return to your position, accept a settlement, or walk away. No choice will cost you my support." Naomi studied him for a long moment. "I believe you have changed." Hope appeared in his eyes, but she continued, "That does not mean I am ready to trust you." Adrian nodded. "Then I will earn it without asking you to wait." 4 months later, the Belmont Hotel entered spring with new leadership and a reputation stronger that had nearly destroyed it. Vanessa and Ethan faced civil and criminal proceedings based on the evidence gathered through the independent investigation. Naomi never attended their hearings. Clearing her name had taught her that justice did not require carrying bitterness into every new day. She returned to the Belmont, but not to her former position. Instead, she accepted an offer to direct a new employee advocacy program with independent authority over workplace complaints, benefits, and promotion reviews. The position reported to an outside committee rather than Adrian, a condition Naomi had requested and he had approved without negotiation. Under her leadership, the hotel restored lost benefits, created tuition assistance for hourly employees, and promoted Marcus to head of operations. Adrian remained present in the company, but he respected the distance Naomi had placed between them. He never appeared uninvited at her office. He never sent gifts that created an obligation. When a business decision affected her department, he gave her the complete information and accepted her answer, even when she disagreed with him. Naomi learned from public records that he had removed several longtime advisors connected to the family's former operations. He sold businesses that could not meet legal standards and established independent oversight for those that remained. The changes cost him money, influence, and support within his own organization, but he never used those sacrifices to ask for her forgiveness. One Friday evening, Naomi finished reviewing scholarship applications and found the executive offices nearly empty, even as guests continued moving through the busy hotel below. Outside her window, Chicago glowed beneath a warm April sunset. Her phone vibrated with a message from the number she had once entered by mistake. Adrian had not contacted her personally since the night her name was cleared. The message read, "I should have told you the truth to your face." Naomi stared at the words, remembering the winter night when anger had carried her into a stranger's penthouse. That accidental meeting had exposed a betrayal, threatened her career, and forced two guarded people to confront what honesty truly required. She typed several responses and deleted each one. Finally, she put on her coat and took the elevator to the Belmont's rooftop restaurant, a neutral place she had selected before leaving her office. Adrian sat alone at a quiet table overlooking the city, with no assistants, security staff, or carefully prepared speech. He stood when she approached, but waited for her to choose the seat across from him. "I did not know whether you would come," he said. "Neither did I." Naomi explained that forgiveness was not the same as forgetting, and that trust would have to be rebuilt through ordinary days, not dramatic promises. Adrian listened without interruption. "I am not asking you to forget," he said. "I am asking whether I may begin again honestly." Naomi studied the man before her. His power had once made every room cautious, but he had finally learned that love could not be commanded, purchased, or protected through secrecy. It had to be offered without control and accepted without fear. "One dinner," she said. "No business, no investigations, and no hidden information." A restrained smile appeared on Adrian's face. "Those terms are fair." They ordered dinner and spoke until the city lights replaced the sunset. Adrian told her about the community foundation he planned to establish in his father's name. And Naomi described her goal of expanding the employee program across every Russo property. Nothing was promised beyond that evening, yet for the first time, neither of them needed certainty to feel hopeful. When Naomi returned home, she opened their message thread. The first words she had sent were filled with heartbreak and intended for a man who had never deserved them. Her newest message carried no anger and required no mistake to reach its destination. She typed, "This time you have the right number," and pressed send.